They're coming around. Here, you have. You're supposed to take one of these. Yes.
Do you have agendas over there, Michelle?
No, we don't have one.
You guys have one there, yeah. Okay, so I am hitting the record button, and we're starting now. I call to order the meeting of Narberth Borough Council Wednesday, March 4th at 7:38 p.m. We will postpone calling the roll. I had some prepared comments if we had a larger audience. I don't see that audience, so I will save those comments. Ms. Mayor, do you have comments?
I do have a couple comments. I wanted to announce to the public that we will be giving out a sergeant's examination for the hiring of a sergeant in the Narberth Police Department. That examination will be given on June 10th at 9 a.m. Sponsored. The name of the group of McCann and Associates will be giving that exam. A formal announcement will be following as required by law. The officers will be given 90 days to study for the exam, and that exam is going to be specifically tailored to meet the needs of our community, so it takes a little while to create these exams. That's why it takes a little while. But we're very excited and looking forward to having the sergeant in our borough, service in our borough. So the next item I just wanted to make mention of, as everybody's aware, the coronavirus is becoming of great concern to everybody in this country, frankly around the world. We'll be putting together some guidelines just to follow, but it's the same guidelines you've been hearing from other sources, from the CDC, from the health department, about washing your hands, about eliminating handshaking and ways to transmit the virus. So we'll be sending out some information to everybody to do what we can to limit the possibilities of passing this virus around. So just please be on the lookout for that as well. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Metchik, could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Ms. Rickards?
Here.
Ms. Pananopoulos?
Here.
Mr. McGreevy? Here. Ms. Elshox?
Here.
Mr. Bush? Here. Mr. Weisbord? Here. Mayor Andrew Deutsch?
Here.
President Aaron Meter?
Here, thank you. Okay, we'll go to the committee reports, Finance and Administration.
We did not meet because 2 weeks ago we substituted our F&A meeting for an executive session. However, I just have a couple of points of interest. I was contacted by a citizen interested in the recent Montgomery County PD termination. I reached out to both Commissioner Arkush and Lawrence's and asked for just something more specific than the general comment, understanding the complexity of employment personnel issues. And just this evening I got a response from Commissioner Arkush with a more detailed article that was just released. I haven't had an opportunity to read it, but would encourage any citizens that are interested to email me. I can forward that or communicate citizen concern. I was also really transparent that I professionally am very interested in bail reform as a professor of criminology. While I'm wearing my elected official hat here, I do appreciate the complexity of employment issues and hope that as a county that we use this as an opportunity to really address some of the draconian bail issues that disproportionately incarcerate our most impoverished citizens. So members of the public or council, I can forward this to you and we can just...
Can you send us all of us?
Yes, please.
Sure, absolutely. I didn't even read it. I got it 5 minutes ago.
No, I understand that, but...
Sure, I will forward that all, and I did actually ask Fred if he thought I was crossing the boundary from elected official to professional to kindly tap me.
This Fred?
Well, yeah.
You can't reach.
Or anyone else. Okay.
Anything else?
NIDA, we made a request for $12,000 and change for netting. NIDA was able to provide $8,000 and change in netting, for baseball netting that is. The F&A committee has asked the Narberth Athletic Association to come to our next meeting in 2 weeks. We sent a list of questions just really to understand how the financial relationship between the NAA and community members and the borough works. This will help inform our next step of user agreements as we move on to fields.
Before you change gears on
Sure.
that. where do we stand with the execution of this project? Is it on hold, pending the remaining funding?
Well,
Is it, where are we?
You're talking about what
The
project?
netting.
We have actually an under budget solution, around $32,000. We're in the process of placing that order and getting on the delivery schedule. There's an ad alternate that we're considering, but we're going to have that conversation directly with the Athletic Association if they want to add that. The borough has not authorized this extra spend, so if that ad alternate, which would be some additional netting on the third base side, that would be on their.
So right now you have a path forward with the authorized amount, with the matched amounts from the other groups, and so
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
discussion, but nothing's on hold.
Nothing's on hold at the moment.
right.
Thank you.
But this really did just shed some light on a dynamic that has, again, I haven't understood for years, and I think there are others some questions. So it allows us just to kind of learn and then really set up a new process of, again, who is altering, who is responsible for borough property, who has the right to alter borough property, and what is the procedures and process for that. So we'll be able to shed some light on that after our next meeting.
Okay.
FNA continues to have conversations with the Business Association. Friday, the NBX meeting with Bob and Max. I'm unable to be there, and I'll try to call in if possible, just to, again, develop a communication plan so when construction starts. Tim Rubin has agreed that all communications from the construction manager would go directly to the office, Sean or Ed. The office then would push it out via the Flash and Facebook to keep both businesses and citizens abreast of any inconveniences as far as traffic or roads, as well as, to probably no surprise of everyone, Sweet Mabel has developed a public art plan and partnership. To the point where, I mean, only in Narberth, apparently Tim Rubin lives on a farm in Malvern and has a pig and a donkey, and Beth said, my God, we should have your donkey to Narberth and make lemons out of lemonade and have a party in Station Circle. So, the pig is apparently mean, so Mr. Rubin suggested the donkey over the pig. I do think that perhaps we should come up with an open house date. I know, right? Like only in Narberth.
Is this really happening? Tim Rubin's donkey is coming to Narberth?
No, I actually am saying this. No, I think he is going to pack.
Only
He was.
Family Guy.
Stay tuned.
I said we were a Democratic council, so did not.
Can't make this up.
You really can't make this up. We are Parks and Rec.
The strain of the previous meeting is taking a toll.
Oh my God. I know.
All right.
Okay, moving on. I do think that it's probably a good time for us to think about our spring open house date. I don't think we need to do this here. Perhaps I can send out a doodle poll. We tried a Saturday morning. It wasn't all that effective. I'd like to suggest perhaps that we do an evening where community members can come in and we can just have some informal conversation.
That
Look
sounds
for
great.
that doodle poll. Rob and I met with Amy Hockenberry and Joe Asser from Harrisburg. They came, and because we are the only PA municipality currently with plastics legislation, they just want to do a dive into the data to look at cost and plastic reduction. So I sent out a call to businesses. That paper is actually going to be presented in the Capitol either June 24th or June 30th, and they invited us all to come and see that presented on the floor.
Okay.
Done.
Thank you. Any questions for Finance and Administration? Public Health and Safety.
So we just met before this meeting and we discussed two things. The EAC chair, Jesse Lytle, came to update us on the ICLEI project, on the greenhouse gas inventory. And that's moving along, so at our next meeting in April, they will be presenting the data visualizations through the software so we can see our baseline data. And then in May, we will be discussing carbon reduction goals as part of a climate action plan. And the goal is to have a draft climate action plan for carbon reduction in June that our committee could vet and then recommend to the council. So we are hoping that in July or August, the council would be in a position to discuss and vote on a proposed climate action plan. And then the second item is the emergency management coordinator. Our chief, John Gallagher, is our current EMC, but we're looking for someone to step in more permanently. And so we discussed a process. We would like to suggest that as a committee, we consider a job description at our next meeting in April in consultation with John and Sean and the mayor. And then we would want to advertise the position for, say, a month, so that in May, our committee could then interview candidates that come forward.
Okay.
And then make a recommendation to council for someone to hold the EMC position and also a second person to serve as deputy EMC. So we would want to make that recommendation after our May meeting in time for June council meeting.
Okay. Any questions for public health and safety? Hearing none. Infrastructure. Mr. Bush.
We met last week. We had a presentation on the Intelligent Pavement Management, which is a way to gather information on road conditions that can then be linked to the borough's GIS maps and provide us with accurate data on conditions of roads and help us set priorities for road repaving. This is already budgeted in the borough engineer fees, and this is ready to go. So hopefully we will have this information soon to help us guide our paving plans. We also talked about the Complete Streets Windsor project, specifically the most popular option from the community meeting, which is the bike lane, the two-way bike lane, with alterations to traffic flow and parking on Windsor. Since our estimate from McMahon for the study for a traffic study to determine what the effect would be was quite high in many people's opinion. We're looking into doing this as a pop-up project to try out a bike lane on that space for a week or so, or 2 weeks, and see what happens to the traffic flow, and see what happens to the parking, whether how well it fits in with the borough's overall transportation. And it seems like this can be done inexpensively. So the committee discussed the idea, we all like it, and I'm going to be working with the stakeholders and with the borough to try to come up with a cost and a specific plan to bring to council in the next few weeks. We'd like to do this for Earth Day, because traditionally there has been a pop-up, small Earth Day lane. That's kind of a tight time window, so we may or may not be able to do that, but that's, I think that would be fitting.
Okay. Yes, I would ask if there's any discussion or questions specifically about Windsor Avenue, that we have sort of a consensus opinion to take it to this next step, so we don't do work and then sort of have this discussion later. What's the general feeling about a pop-up bike lane changing of the direction of Windsor Avenue for 1 week?
I actually, I have some concerns about just abrupt changes in traffic patterns and changing it and then changing it back and setting up expectations and how this is going to play into public safety. So I have some concerns.
Okay, we'll put that on the table. We'll leave it there. Any other thoughts?
I like the idea in general. I like it. I also, the first thing it brings to mind is a ton of public safety concerns that I'm thinking about with the bridge, how many safety concerns that raised, and that was just one little short area, and I think the safety to do it right without creating a lot of potential accidents would take a lot of thinking, a lot of doing, because people are so used to coming through here that it makes me a little nervous that it's going to be a big undertaking. I don't think it's something small because people are used to the traffic flow.
Okay. Rob?
So I would support the trial. We discussed an infrastructure. I think that McMahon could do a small study, I think, is part of what we discussed for safety reasons. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, we need to have somebody vet this and make sure that it's safe before we implement it. We're not just going to go out there and do this project. We're
Right.
definitely going to get it.
But it would be a much smaller sum than, say, the 13,000 that was originally proposed for McMahon.
Theoretically, that's what we're expecting.
There is no price. Following up on that, I wondered if anybody would be interested in discussing whether, given that we've had concerns with whether McMahon is always the right fit for certain projects in the borough. We went back and forth quite a bit on the bridge. There's a history that anyone on the table is somewhat familiar with, some feelings of some difficulty or maybe a fit problem. Is this an opportunity to think about looking or to work with somebody different on this one isolated project, just get a sense of how we feel about it? Just throwing it out there. There are, issues with finding someone, the potential for adding delay, et cetera, but I'd love to get everybody's thoughts because there's probably a lot of things I haven't thought about.
I agree. I mean, I think the last question I asked of McMahon was, okay, you gave us this proposal of what could happen. And then the last request I made was, can you work with Public Works to see what could be done in-house to give us a more accurate number? And I don't think we ever heard anything back from that.
Okay.
Did McMahon ever?
Never heard
Okay. Because
anything.
I
Just
suspect you
confirming.
could do a lot of what was being proposed in-house.
Sure.
But additionally, Michelle, just to kind of mirror what you're saying, I think, personally, I was kind of underwhelmed. It was not the innovation that I think we were looking for.
So as a data point on this, I was talking with some bicycle planning groups and was told there was a pop-up bike lane about the same length, about half a mile in Westchester that was put up for a day. It was not a longer than that, but I think that I was told the costs were around $500 to put up that bike lane, temporary bike lane with painting with some. They used some orange barriers. I mean, they had some physical stuff they put up, but it was not expensive. So. And I understand that there are, potential safety issues, and sure we want to work, but, if we're going to do that, if we were going to make this change, that would also be a large-scale change on traffic. So I feel like an actual study will tell us, actually doing it will tell us a lot more about what would happen than trying to study it,
But potentially less
Yeah,
abstractly. Right?
no, I agree that doing it as a trial will give you far more information than any paper report's ever going to give you. And doing it as a trial sets up an expectation. You're going to do it, then you're going to change it back, and you're going to analyze your results. But I do think it's very important to have a professional evaluate it from a safety perspective and check those boxes so that we can sit here at the table and say approved and authorized, and we can know we're not creating some sort of obvious, glaring engineering school 101 undue hazard, right? And then we can decide if we want to.
Did you consider, so Windsor's only two-way up to Forest, and then it's one-way. Did you consider just eliminating parking on the one side from the park to Forest? So you're not changing the traffic pattern, but you're not really eliminating that much
I
parking?
think it's Essex, not Forest.
Where the one that starts.
Where does it start? Oh, so even less, Essex.
I don't know. I'm not sure if that's feasible for a two-way bike lane. I think,
Two-way bike lane.
yeah, we're looking at a two-way protected bike lane. That was the proposal. And I'm working with what McMahon gave us and what was proposed at the workshop. So I'm not a designer.
Got it.
That was what I thought we should try to implement.
Mona?
When you say altering the traffic flow, are you talking about one-way all of Windsor
Mhm.
and two-way? Because of course that immediately brings to mind, I live across from the fire station and I'm wondering how they'll be able to answer. So
That's the engineer's job to
That's the
figure something
engineer's
out
job.
and give a
Okay.
stamp of here, yes, you can do this. Or, no, you can't, and then we know.
And this was originally in the proposal from McMahon, so
Okay.
I'm assuming they took that into account. But
We'll find
certainly
out.
it's a valid concern if they
Okay.
didn't.
So just to unpack where we were with Michelle's concept or Cindy, of hiring a different traffic engineer, right? Is this sort of timing wise, I guess, sure, we could get it out there and ask them, is it too small that they would be interested, or would they see it maybe as an entree to winning more business, right? I don't know, I guess that's up for them to decide. So do we want to do that?
I have a comment to that point about just sort of a process. And I keep imagining the first time somebody proposed that they close the downtown street for a day for a block party, and all the logistics that had to be resolved to close Hadford Avenue. And it involves like notifying SEPTA and rerouting the
44, yeah.
the 44 bus, and there's some other issues. And I think I really like in principle the idea of this kind of pop-up test drive of this road configuration, because it'll tell its own story really. We won't have to debate it. To Michelle's point though about the sort of the whether or not the traffic engineer is the appropriate fit for us, I'm thinking that there is a question of timing as to when we would introduce a new one, and I'm thinking that perhaps this is a great opportunity to bring in the traffic engineer that we currently have to sit down with the infrastructure committee, so that you could describe to the traffic engineer, this is sort of our aspiration, this is what we'd like to do for a week or two, like what's entailed, like what are the steps what are the logistics that would need, and safety issues that would need to be resolved so that this could work, and actually just have a real-time discussion with him. And maybe he won't put his seal on that, but at least you begin to get a feel of what he's thinking about, and you could also get a feel if he understands our community and the sort of the scale of your desire to approach this kind of issue iteratively, like through trial, and which seems like also a way to work with the stakeholders. It's like it presents a great opportunity to involve the neighbors and other people who would be interested. So I'm just proposing that perhaps that the next step would be to sit down, that the infrastructure committee would sit down with the traffic engineer and discuss it and see what you learn. Because
I think there should be a discussion. I mean, definitely, I think this is not ready to be voted on. I mean,
No.
The next step is going to be to get a specific proposal that we can then vote on. I mean, that's what I would like to do next.
Yeah.
Is to try to get a.
So then it sounds like I'm hearing a general consensus that this is worth continuing to pursue. I think you've got some good
I have one
opinions
other
from the
question.
table.
I mean, I have one other question really, which is, every time we pursue one project or one sort of set of thought path, we are sacrificing something else. And I'm just wondering, is there a cost to pursuing this particular initiative at this time, either for the committee or for the staff, or it's really a question, innocent question. I'm not seeing something where I would say so.
Well, we're not ready to start paving Windsor yet, right? So this was all the reason we're working on it now is because we were going to do stormwater improvements and paving and potentially, change the traffic flow on Windsor all at the same time. So since we're not ready to do the paving part, I don't think we're foregoing anything other than planning the other elements. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'll add to that.
This is a test.
Fred called me with this idea. I supported sort of continuing to move this forward because we've invested a lot of time and some dollars in the Windsor Avenue project in general. And I think we've all sort of seen it's a little stalled, maybe not a clear vision or community consensus path forward. This seemed like a low-cost way to sort of iteratively try something, kind of a new approach as part of this bigger project. It is definitely part of a smaller, sort of more direct constituency making the request, but the information that will come out of it would inform that whole project. And as we get into prioritizing what we're going to be working on all year, is it at the top of the list? Is it getting bumped down to the bottom of the list? I think if we have
have an answer by the end of April, that sure will help.
So 3 core questions. One is a larger, which is Windsor. I mean, are we reaffirming the priorities that we set last year and didn't complete?
Just looking at this.
Which is Windsor, Sabine, parking, and communication plan. I mean, we really never did an analysis of why we did not get any of those done. So I think before we can go any further, we as a council probably need to have the conversation
I agree.
and reaffirm and map out just points of progress.
Right.
Since last year, nothing was accomplished. That's point 1. Point 2 is I actually would be very interested in having someone other than McMahon sit down if you're going to have an informal conversation, because I think I've had it.
I was going to ask if council's open to it. Well, first of all, do we feel that we need to have this in a committee meeting, or is it possible to have a conversation with a provider outside of the committee meeting? I mean, I really, truly, this is a point of subject.
Professional services.
Well,
it's an
Could
information
Fred, for
session.
example, have a discussion with another type of traffic planner or engineer outside, or do we need to formally invite them to meet? Because I mean, that matters a lot for the timing of things.
Sure.
To feel out their interest or get their sense, or just sort of discuss the project and report it back.
Yeah, you can have conversation.
Okay,
Set
so
the
we don't
questions.
officially have to have a sit down at the meeting, because that's what you proposed about. So I mean, I
I
think.
only
I
proposed
would-
it to see.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm presuming.
I was just going to
okay.
suggest that maybe what we could do is talk to, maybe put out feelers and sort of contact a couple of different traffic planning and engineers and report back to council.
I have a couple names that I was given, people who are
Including
interested
your
in
band, because they've
in
already
working
worked with
with
us, yeah.
us. So
That's it.
This is an interesting project because it's trying to address a number of concerns at once, which is why we're having so great. We have sort of concerns about our traffic engineer, concerns about the Windsor Avenue project, concerns about sort of how we work as a council to come up with things. And this is sort of hitting all of them, but because it's sort of small and time isolated, I think it's a good one to push forward in that way. It'll hit a lot of buttons at once.
And I wasn't arguing, just to respond to you, Michelle, I'm not arguing for McMahon because I think McMahon's the right traffic engineer. I just think they're the traffic engineer we currently have and have studied the issue the most, and they have the most awareness. But that doesn't preclude going and talking to other people. It's
Yeah,
just-
I mean, although the ability to do that sort of, that's why I asked the process question, because if you have to have a separate provider at every meeting, it's going to take you, until the fall to even get through that. So that's why. But if we could just make informal contact, I think that's a valuable thing to do.
Fine. So, I mean, I'm happy to pursue this informally and then report back.
If I could just add 2 quick notes then. Mary Jo Daly's office sends grants, and I've asked Sean actually if he could forward those to FNA, and then we could disperse. One of the agenda items on FNA is identifying what is our process and procedure for cancel for grants. So as we think of Windsor Avenue, I do think that we should be strategic in taking advantage of stormwater, our local economy, and whatnot.
I think our best bet for a grant will be for the final version of this. If we come up with a bike
Probably.
lane plan based on this evidence, then there's our grant. We say, okay, we did this temporarily, we want to do it permanently, and we're going to include this, and this is what we're going to do. So I think it would support a grant.
All right.
Did have a couple other.
Yeah, go for it.
We talked about the pollution reduction plan. We may be changing focus away from one of the items in the plan, which is the Narberth Park stream bank restoration. So looking into whether there are other options for getting stormwater runoff stormwater pollution reduction outside of Narberth Park. So this is very much a work in progress. We're still not really at the point of bringing this to council, full council for a vote. And then there was an update on the 201 Sabine planning process. We're looking at some advisors to help us with this. And, it's still a process, and we'll be back again next month.
So has anything happened there or anything?
Nothing has happened yet. So
No decisions, no forward
no
motion?
decisions, nothing has been made. And again, at this point, we are only looking to bring in a consultant to help us with the planning process. That's where we are in this. So infrastructure members will be meeting at some point with these candidates. Bring recommendations after, trying to think of time, probably in April.
And I just want to clarify that these consultants are not developers.
Correct, yeah. We're
Okay,
not
just that
developers,
they're
we're not
eliminate
doing
any-
any business with developers,
Right,
right?
I just want to nip that rumor in the bud.
Thank you. Okay, anything else?
That's it.
That's it. Just a quick information point for me. The Finance Administration Committee was going to meet with the business privilege tax collector. Is that scheduled?
For our next meeting, because we canceled 2 weeks ago.
Okay, all right.
And just a reminder, at FNA meeting, we did move to 6 o'clock instead of 6:30. So next meeting, we'll have the E-clock as well as the NAI.
The next meeting will be in daylight.
Correct.
A bit of a change. Okay. All right, public comment. Move to agenda item 6. Any member of the public? I'll start in the rear. Assuming Chief Gallagher has nothing to say. Carol Marie Scanlon.
Oh, hello, everybody. And interesting, we just talked about the infrastructure because, as Mayor Deutsch just said, talking about developers for the Sabine property, I am very concerned about open space, and I know a lot of our neighbors in the community are concerned about open space. And I went to a planning zoning meeting on Monday night. I asked about the zoning and protective easement on both the Narberth Park and the Sabine Park. And I just want to make citizens know that the parks, this park right outside here, the park over at Sabine Avenue, are a 3B limited zoning, not an open space protection, which means that it can be developed at any time depending, there is no protection on this. Todd Bressie, the chair of the Planning and Zoning Committee, confirmed that the Borough Council would do anything with these borough-owned properties as far as any development they deem fit. So you all are talking about having another set of consultants come, and Mr. Bush just said they're not dealing with a developer at this point. There have already been 3 developer real estate consultants for this property at 201 Sabine since 2015. Pannoni was in 2015, KBCA in August of 2018, Beth Beckett in October of 2019. And we just want to know, why are we having another one? It seems like this is a property that is being obsessed about. We residents want you to leave the park, do maintenance, do not develop on that park. In 2015, Pannoni said the building was solid but needed maintenance. So far, there's been a whole lot of maintenance done to that. There's been the HAZBAC update, heating system update, and a $500,000 roofing project that was just done. If you're getting another real estate consultant, is it because you're looking to fill an agenda, or why are you getting another real estate consultant on this one? Councilmember Weisborg has talked about $3.8 million in 5 years of renovations. Well, are these cosmetic renovations? Are they structural renovations? Are they updated renovations? Question that we all have. Now, council has said that they have no plans to develop the property, but in our right to know that we have recently received, there's a lot of things that really put question to that. I have a list of things that we just like to bring up. In August of 2018, at a property committee, council member Panopoulos said that they were talking about developing the Montgomery Avenue corridor, and when that was questioned, it was the Montgomery Avenue at the park facing Montgomery Avenue, talking about developing that side, park on the other side. There's other right to know emails. On August 23rd, 2018, former council member Wigbright said to council member Weisborg, your biggest decision ahead is what to do with Sabine property. Hope you can keep it under borough control and maintain some type of rent function, as those types of revenue streams don't come easily. December 2nd, 2019, Councilmember Weisborg has referenced a, quote, simple history of the council's decision to hire a planner to help us with the reuse redevelopment of the Sabine Avenue parcel. December 4th, 2019, in response to resident J.L., whose name I have, Councilmember Weisborg says, quote, the planner the borough hires will help the borough residents and government decide how to best use the property, unquote. February 7th, 2019, Councilmember Cindy Rickards states in an email to Councilmember Wigbright and Panopoulos, hello, Bob and Michelle. I left more confused after last night's meeting about Sabine property. I continue to feel as if I'm missing something and asking the same question, what's the future of this property? Moreover, the change to think big about the park that should most likely be moved further exacerbates my confusion about the appropriate timeline process and planning. Upon reflection, I believe it is a mistake for the office and the finance to begin engaging the Recreation Board. If our current financial status dictates the future of Sabine, no progress will ever be made. Moreover, our largest and most utilized recreation space is in poor condition. How do we possibly be bold about an obscure park when after 5 years we've been able to fix tennis courts and have sanitary bathrooms? Continuing, I suggest that we halt all discussion other than safety and upkeep of Sabine and find a consultant, not Ed, to advise us on the mixed use, public, private, etc. options. Moving on, we need to find the consultant that has vision and the knowledge of how to creatively get us to a place where this space can be repurposed. It is beyond the scope of Rec Board. We have not raised taxes for 8 years, and I contend that holding on to an outdated property that we are revenue dependent upon becomes irresponsible. I find the Sabine property discussion chaotic and fear that having F&A drive the process is potentially a mistake. On February 28, 2019, Councilman Weisbord said to council members Panopoulos and Rickards, quote, "The committee is firm in our resolve to improve Sabine Park, but also explore alternative development schemes that might offer us the opportunity to improve the property and extricate the Borough Council and management from the commercial property management basis."
1 minute, Calmer. Well, you can keep going.
Thank you. In the PDF entitled 2020 Priorities revealed in one of our right to knows in an email from Councilmember Weisbord, quote, 201 Sabine Avenue, we will work with a third-party consultant to help us make requests for appropriate development partnerships. By the end of 2020, we will have identified potential development partners. A qualified partner must not only show fiscal and pragmatic feasibility, they must also demonstrate their willingness and ability to engage our wider community. In December 5th, 2019, an email from Councilmember Wisbrike to me personally, quote, I can assure that no one is interested in selling Sabine. Either that is why we need to explore long-term solutions that we can hopefully afford.
All right, thank you. Anything else?
Oh yeah,
15 seconds.
just a little bit more.
15 seconds.
15 seconds, 20 seconds. Email from Councilmember Weisberg to another resident, November 27th. My thought is that when we have a final plan for the site, parentheses, that might mean restoration of the existing buildings, we would like to place a protective easement on the open space. At this point, the Borough Council can put any type of restricted use on the land and change it again just as easily. We should find a longer lasting solution. So what I glean from these, in conclusion, what I glean from these emails between yourself is that you're looking to sell or redevelop the property. If you council members have no plans to sell the property and are committing to retaining the open space of both of our parks, why don't we make zoning changes from the 3B limited to permanent open space with a permanent protection easement, so never in our lifetime, our children's lifetime, our grandchildren's lifetime, our grandchildren's lifetime, there will always be 2 permanent protected open spaces in Narberth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to comment? Public comment? Mr. Hawkinson.
Andy Hawkinson, 203 Wayne Avenue, and a veteran of the siege of 201 Sabine Avenue. My concern is a little more focused, and it's on what I believe is an effort now to get yet another consulting report of some sort on the building. I just want to make sure I have my facts straight, that we've got a fully occupied building that produces someplace north of $260,000 in gross rental income, managed by Yentis, a well-respected management firm who files quarterly reports with the borough on the status and expenses of operating the building. And this would be an additional report in addition to one prepared by KCBA Architects, which somehow has gone missing, at least from my limited skills, from the borough website. And I would request that that get put back where it can be looked at, in particular because that seems to be the source of $3.8 million over 5 years. If we're going to do another report, I'd certainly like to see the RFP for that report, or what the process is going to be to hire a consultant and what the anticipated cost will be. In particular, I'd like to know what the scope of work of that report is anticipated to be and what the anticipated cost is going to be. And given the current economic situation, I'm wondering if the whole thing isn't premature and whether or not the whole effort shouldn't be tabled until economics go into a more stable, perhaps post-election mode, and we can tell whether or not any of the projections would make any sense. There also are a couple of documents that I would request be put on the website someplace. One is the renewal documentation for the MELC lease, which is not there, and the Yentis quarterly reports, which would I would assume, contain a rent roll. I have a vested interest in maintaining the park, as I have two small grandchildren that live with me, and it's the only park in my limited scope that I can walk to myself with those kids. And I think it may be, I think in the comprehensive report for the borough, it was characterized as underutilized. I can guarantee you that when people find out that it is somehow on the chopping block here, or somehow being considered for any kind of development, you will hear from people that use it. And one more point from a real estate point of view is that any note of uncertainty that you add to the tenants that are in that building right now, as far as their occupancy goes, is going to affect the way that they do their planning and the rent that they're willing to pay. Thank you.
Thank you. I do believe the report you questioned is on the website.
Andy, it's posted on the website.
It is? Okay.
It's under plans, reports, and presentations. It's all there. You'll see 8/1/2018, the full report is down
Great.
there.
I couldn't find
Thank you.
it.
Thank you for your comments. All right, anybody else for public comment? Okay, we'll close public comment. Action items, 7A. You have a motion?
Yep, I have a motion to adopt resolution 2020-003, preliminary plan approval for 650 Montgomery Avenue.
Seconded. Any discussion? Any input from hearing none? Yes, go
Sorry,
ahead,
I
Mona.
have a quick question.
Please.
So on that, I was just looking under A and B, the Pannoni Engineering Review, the final plan for the project, applicant must address to the satisfaction of the borough engineer the Pannoni Engineering Review letter, and in B, the final plan, the applicant must address to the satisfaction the applicable comments in the Yerkes Associates. And can anyone just refresh my memory? I know we talked about this at the last meeting, or we talked about the plan, but I'm just wondering A and B.
Specifically,
Under the conditions of preliminary plan approval.
I'm not trying to be difficult. What is the question? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was reading the wrong part. Under waivers, the applicants requested waivers from requiring surveying features within 100 feet of the property. Sorry, I was reading the wrong A and B. And under B, it's requiring the waiver from requiring topographic contours within 50 feet of the property. And can you remind me what those two are about?
Well, they're normal requirements,
Uh-huh.
but given that this is a development within a larger parcel that is owned by the same developer, I believe the engineer felt they could be waived. Right? If this was developed and it was abutting someone else's property, you would want those surveys done.
Okay.
But given that this is an inset, am I speaking correctly?
Couldn't say by myself.
And the topographic contours, is that the same?
They're two requirements of the same. They're two waivers for two code sections that are basically requiring the same thing. It's a limit of additional survey beyond the normal property. Those are typically required if you're doing a greenfield development where you're taking raw land and developing it that would have impact to how it propagates to other properties beyond your ownership. Mm-hmm. But in this case, we're bound by an existing drive lane that's already built. We're developing inside a circle of the existing parking lot with really no impact to anything beyond our property line.
Okay.
That there's
I remember
already
that part.
fence line already buffers, so everything's insulated, so there's no need for additional survey beyond our property.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? All in favor of the preliminary plan approval for 650 Montgomery Avenue, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Unanimous. Motion is approved. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you gentlemen at the next stage of development. There you go. Mr. Metrick, you had emailed me with a couple of small items. We're getting down to announcements. I don't know if you have anything for this point in the meeting for yourself, or?
I do not.
Okay. Any other announcements?
Oh, I just wanted to say, I'm gonna draft, and I'll send the draft around to you all, 2 simple thank you letters on behalf of all of us, and I hope we can put these thank you letters on a letterhead, and all of us sign them at the meeting, including the mayor. One for the participants in the comprehensive plan task force, to thank them for that, and kind of put a bookend around that. And then the second for the group of people who worked on the heritage steering committee as well, to thank them for their work, because they wrote a very significant report along with the Pennsylvania Museum Commission, and we have that report now, and the Planning Commission sort of is the keeper of that report, and they've made recommendations to us as well. But I think it's nice just to thank the individuals who are involved in that. So I wanted to mention that. We're going to put those together for
Thank you.
next time. Raise your hand if you want to see the draft before the meeting next time. No? You're all okay? Okay. Great.
Okay. A couple of upcoming items. Mr. Metrick is going to send us all his master list of sort of everything under the sun that's kind of open as it relates to direction from council. We've been batting around back and forth, adding some things to the list so that we can discuss our prioritization at our next meeting. So we'll go out, take time to look at it, and hopefully, it will inform any upshifts or downshifts or sideways shifts.
Set aside at least 90 minutes of your day to read through it all.
That's it. Look, there's a lot of things that come up at meetings that go on a memory list of things we need to do, and we're going to prioritize them. So that's where we are. We will meet in executive session following this meeting to discuss matters of potential litigation, as well as personnel matters. And with that, I will take a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. We will not be.